Welcome to the Frontline, my intellectual panel discussion. We're glad tonight to have you guys join us. And tonight's topic is a topic that definitely needs to be talked about. We're talking about the joys and complexities of 21st century education. And before I introduce my esteemed panelists tonight, just a little bit about the Frontline. Of course, I assemble a panel of wise, professional, educated, trained, experienced adults just to have an intellectual conversation. That's what we're doing tonight. The front line, we discuss a wide variety of topics that affect the way we think, the way we live, the way we behave, the way we interact with others. We address issues within social, political, financial, and religious systems also. And we recognize trends in the culture of our society. Our job is to provide information that will help you change your life, change your way of thinking, and change the way you view the world that we live in. We want to bring understanding and clarity and awareness by using biblical principles also. Now, I have some rules for everybody, for those of you viewing and for my panelists. The front line is not a debate. We do not argue. We do not insult one another. We are not combative. We do not purpose to offend. We respect everyone present and we listen attentively to those that are speaking. Again, we want to challenge the way that you think to provide a fresh, different perspective on any given subject matter. And ladies and gentlemen, I am happy tonight to have these wonderful people with us. And before I introduce them one more time, I want you all that are viewing to please, please, please share this broadcast because we want everybody to partake in this discussion tonight because this is huge. Ladies and gentlemen, my panelists tonight are all personal friends of mine, really more like family, but I'm glad to have them on. All of you all, whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, or YouTube, I want you to please welcome, firstly, my friend, my brother, I call him Chief. It's Dr. Apostle Chaun Johnson. How are you, sir?
God bless you, Pastor Taylor. Doing well. Excited about the front line.
Glad to have you on tonight. Won't you take a moment and let the people know who you are and what you do?
In my secular work, I have over 20 plus years in education. I have served as a social chairperson, social science chairperson, dean of students, assistant principal, senior principal, lead principal, founding principal of 5 schools. And I'm just happy to be here. And right now I serve as an assistant principal over at Holy Angels. I took a little break from being, elevated a little bit.
Okay. Okay, I see. Because I'm used to hearing the principal thing on you. So you kind of went down a little bit. Take some of the pressure off.
I went over because we all work together.
Right.
We all work together. Right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. A pleasure to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to introduce to you my girl, the golden life, Tina Pittman. How you doing, young lady?
I'm doing good. I'm doing wonderful. I really am.
Good. So glad to have you on tonight. Let the people know who you are and what you do.
Woo. I wear so many different hats. I am an employee of CPS. I am a teacher. I am at Nash Elementary School. I am the middle school language arts, social science, civics teacher. I am the union delegate for my school, secretary for LSC at my school as well. And in ministry as well. So ordained minister. So I wear many different hats. But teaching is my gift, and I know, and that's where my joy lies, is in teaching. I enjoy giving knowledge to others, making sure they have understanding, which is very vital in this time.
Absolutely. So glad to have you on with us tonight. And you teach at which school?
Nash Elementary on the west side.
Nash Elementary on the west side, which is where I graduated 8th grade. I want y'all to know that, okay?
Did not know
I
that.
graduated from Nash in 8th grade. Yes.
Oh, wow.
I sure did.
I've been at Nash for 16 years.
Wow. Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good evening, those of you that are coming in. Also, please share this broadcast. I want you to share it. Natalie Johnson, Lady Natalie, Lady Fave. I got a lot of names for her. She is on. That is the wife of Dr. Chaun Johnson. She said he is the best assistant principal ever. And we're not doing this with y'all tonight, okay?
Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you though. She and I work together. So she's the 6th grade teacher. I'm the assistant principal at the same school.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. And so let's move on here. I see. I'm just not going to even say her name. Hello. So glad to have you guys on. Bishop Jeff, thank you for joining us tonight. That's Nephiteria's daddy.
My daddy.
So glad to have all of you guys joining us tonight. Please share this broadcast tonight. We're going to get really, really good discussions tonight. And also, I'm really happy to have my friend, my brother, Gordon Newman on tonight. It's an honor to have you on. I purposely wanted this man on this show tonight. And without question, he said yes immediately. And I'm glad to have you on, sir. How are you?
I'm good, man. Can't complain. I'm blessed.
Good to have you. Let the people know who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm a school counselor at Jensen Elementary School. 25 to 30 years of clinical experience via DCFS, Catholic Charities, and I'm here to give information as well as receive information.
So glad to have you on. Nephiteria, somebody says hey to you.
Hello.
That is my mama. So glad to have you, everybody, on tonight. And last but certainly not least, y'all, one of my favorite girls ever. I've been in her life since she was 4 years old, and I will never, ever forget that. It's my pumpkin, y'all. Everybody, please send some hearts up if you're on Facebook. Send some hearts up for my girl, Nephiteria Robinson.
Hello, everybody. I am the director at Child Time Learning Facility. I have been in education for almost over 15 years. It is my passion. It is my love. So I am bringing a different perspective with educators. I am an early childhood educator. So I'm coming from a daycare perspective for early childhood. And I'm very, very excited to be on this panel. So thank you for the invite.
No, thank you for accepting. I'm glad to have you. This Nephiteria made it clear that this is totally out of her element. But she was willing to do it, and I'm glad to have all of you guys on. Lady Jacqueline Davis, so glad to have you. Look, Lady Davis, this is not about you tonight. I call it blocking. I know. But that's always been my girl. So I'm glad to have everybody in here tonight. I chose to do this show tonight simply because, and we were chatting before we went live tonight, simply because there are so many different facets of the educational system. And everybody's on social media now. It's an open world. We are free to express our opinions, our likes, our dislikes on any given topic. And obviously, we've just reached the unfortunate 1 year anniversary this past week of what was announced as a global pandemic, the coronavirus. It's been a year since they declared it that, and life as we knew it changed. We were not able to go to the mall. We were not able to go to dinner, to the movies. We were not able even to go to church. And you guys, my panelists here, were not able to go to work. students were not able to go to school. Parents had to stop working because their children had nowhere to go. So they had to stop working to stay home with their children. So tonight's topic is the joys and complexities of 21st century education. I want to quickly take a look at something, and we mentioned this before we came live, and I want to just see how you guys feel about this. This article came from the Chicago Sun-Times, and it was just released this afternoon. It says that in a move that will be critical to bringing more students back to the classrooms, but will likely be met with skepticism from teachers and some parents, Illinois education officials have reduced the 6-foot social distancing requirement in schools to 3 feet as long as educators are vaccinated. It goes on to say that it reflects what we have learned, and this is coming from the Illinois State Board of Education. Says it reflects what we've learned about the transition of COVID-19 in school settings as more students in Illinois and across the country have returned safely to in-person learning during the 2020-2021 school year. And that came from the State Superintendent of Education, Carmen Ayala, I believe it is. So I wanted to, I found that to be important and noteworthy because in an attempt to, I guess you want to say, kind of wean students off of e-learning. Now, they're saying in CPS, come on back to school and we're going to do away with the 6 feet social distancing. It'll be 3 feet as long as the teacher is vaccinated. Okay, so let's start there. Dr. Chaun.
To my understanding, I looked up something from Education Week. The idea of a 6-foot distance between students and others within the school is actually an antiquated or an archaic idea from the 1800s. So the boundary here ultimately is it doesn't really seem any concern about the vaccine, but it may have something to do with average daily attendance. It may have something to do with having the students come into the building and have a shorter distance based on the square footage of the room. Okay. In other words, if we can get more students to come in, then our numbers look better. Now, in Education Week, it says the 6-foot distancing guideline has been a rule of thumb since 1800s, and the earliest studies dealing with infections of spray, sneezes, and coughs of the such. But the main thing to really look at is are the rooms ventilated properly, and does it have enough space, and what about the wearing of masks? So the 3 to 6 foot idea really has nothing. I'm sorry, it has nothing to do with, say, the vaccination. It has more to do, maybe with the politicization of numbers.
You know why I asked that? Because, and I may be reaching a little bit here. You all can let me know. But for me, the thing that concerned me was the way I read it, the way I perceived it is like, let's protect the teacher. As long, the article said, and the Illinois State Superintendent said, this is okay as long as the teacher has been vaccinated. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, what about the kids? You understand what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't know if that's right, if it's wrong, if it's good, if it's bad, but I think I hear what you're saying. concerning ventilation and things of that nature. So if that comes into play, then my next question would be, in the past year, have each of these schools, whether it's CPS or whatever it is, have they all taken the necessary steps to make sure that these classrooms are properly ventilated? Has that happened in the past year?
So I want to chime in because I am a daycare center. I've literally been open. We closed in March, and we literally reopened in June. I've been open since June.
But you were just closed for just a short while.
Just from March to June. We reopened in June. So we were in the midst of the pandemic. So I believe, so we had been practicing the 6-foot rule and, the 3 feet, but all of us wear masks. Kids 2 and up, they wear masks. It's almost close to impossible to keep a distance between children at a 6-foot capacity, to be honest. So my teachers, we're in masks all day. My kids, like I said, from 2 years and up. And I know a lot of times we look at it, well, outsiders, they look at it as, oh my goodness, they're in masks all day. Children adapt very easily. They adapt to their settings. It's not as rough as it may seem. It's just getting them acclimated with wearing the mask daily, making fun activities, making it something, and explaining what COVID-19 is and the damage that it does. A lot of times we often make it taboo that we don't want to talk about it because we're afraid of what are the kids gonna do or what's gonna happen. But if we don't talk about it and discuss, hey, this is what it is, then they won't know. So you'll see at my school, at my center, my kids saying, we have to wear our masks because we don't want to get coronavirus. And like I said, it's close to impossible to separate them. So with teaching them and giving them knowledge of what this virus is and what happens if you don't follow the safety protocols, by giving them that information, it then helps with, I don't think that they're saying like, teachers get vaccinated, so just don't forget about the kids, because even in vaccination, with us getting vaccinated, we are still wearing masks. The kids will still be required to wear masks. It's just, like I said, in my field, from 6 weeks to 12 years of age, is literally close to impossible to keep kids separated at a 6-foot, even 3-foot situation. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. Dr. Natalie says the vaccines have not been adapted yet for children, which is why the emphasis is on the teacher being vaccinated. And that makes total sense to me. Tina Pittman, how long were you taken out of the school?
I'm still out of the school. Wow. I have not returned to my building yet. Many of my students, I have a total of 32 students on my roster. And I average about 29, between 28, 29 students virtually every day for my 8th grade class. Many of them have not opted to go back into the building. This was the first week for 6th through 8th grade to be back in the building. And many of our students have not gone back into the building. The parents have not opted in. So we're gonna see what happens for the month of April. I'm due to go back in the building next week, but I won't have any students in front of me. I'll still be working remote.
So let me interrupt you for a moment. You said that parents opted not to. So you and you all can all of you can let me know yes or no. Is this something that the school system said to the parents? Hey, you have a choice. You can do this or that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And right now, choice out for this week and next week. Parents are able to fill out the survey that says that they want their children to return back for the 4th quarter, the last quarter. We know for sure is K through 8. They're asking high school, but we're not sure because we have not, CPS and CTU have not worked out the dynamics of what it would look like for high school, because it's so many more things that need to happen with high school students. They're much larger than the elementary schools. So we're trying to see how is the social distancing going to work for high schools and the changing of the classes, teachers that have to go, because we're going to be in pods. Elementary schools,
Okay.
we're being divided into pods. Like my class is too big. I can only have 15 at a time. So that's the whole thing. So I can only have 15 students on Monday and Tuesday. And then I have another group if they come back in April, I have a whole another group on Thursday and Friday, and nobody reports to school on Wednesday because they have to deep clean in between the pods going in and out.
Okay. Gordon Newman is here, ladies and gentlemen. A professional school counselor you are. I'm thinking back some years, a whole lot of years since I've been in school. But when I was in school, I remember my counselor, Gordon. We may have had the same high school counselor. We went to Collins together.
Perfect.
Yeah. But I remember being able to go to my counselor and just, it was almost, looking back, it was almost like a therapy session sometimes. Gordon, do you find it to be somewhat like a therapy? Does it like turn into a therapy session for your students within this past year? And before you answer that, how long have you been out of the school and are you back in?
I went back last week, but before that, we've been out since March. Last year, we returned back on the computers in September. So we've been out of the building since March, but I was back since last week.
Okay. And what type of, I kind of know some of this because I see some of your social media posts, and sometimes I'm laughing hysterically, and sometimes I'm concerned, honestly, because of your position. All of you guys is really, but being that you are a counselor, you hear a little bit more than a director would from a student. You hear more than a principal would, or maybe even a teacher.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes they may, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they may come to you and spill the beans, so to speak. So what I want to ask you, what type of, just give us a few examples of some of the things that you have heard without giving too much, obviously, for the sake of confidentiality, from some of your students.
Honestly, a lot of the issues with elementary school students have not been clinical. A lot of their issues have been digital learning, pretty much keeping up academically. I don't know if you've read, but in the paper, and it's true, Chicago public schools have the probably highest failing rate it has ever had in a long time. So a lot of our students are getting D's and they're getting F's. And pretty much their issue is passing to the next grade. Prior to that, I got a lot of issues with bullying. There was a lot of DCFS warranted intervention that was needed. And with kids being at home right now, those hotline calls have went up. So it's a lot of neglect and abuse have gone on. We do well-being checks, actually seeing certain things that go on in the background in some of the students' homes that we were concerned about. Those are some of the newer things. So it's sort of nuanced, but with some of the same issues, but it's more academic now, more so than clinical.
More academic, more so than clinical. That's interesting. I want to come back to that because that statement is really, really heavy. Dr. Chaun, e-learning. Let's talk about that for a moment. First of all, and I want to hear from all of you guys on this, starting with Dr. Chaun, have you personally, do you personally feel that there is an attack, so to speak, on those of you guys in your profession once the e-learning really started? And here's what I mean by that. I saw parents and students alike that were angry. They were frustrated. Parents were overwhelmed. Students were overwhelmed. This pandemic is, it's not the principal's fault. It's not the teacher's fault. It's not the director's fault. It's not the counselor's fault. But I feel that sometimes some of the backlash may come onto you guys. Do you find that happening in your profession?
If I can answer it this way, the topic of our discussion is the complexities of the 21st century education. We've been talking about 21st century education for how long now? 21st century education, it deals with valuing diversity, becoming globally aware, making sure our students are critical thinkers. And we are inculcating that or amalgamating that with technology in education. Were our teachers properly developed or professionally developed and prepared for 21st education? Did our students have equitable access? We knew that our students already were part of this opportunity divide, which lends to the achievement gap between their cohorts or their counterparts, rather. You know, were our teachers and our faculty and staff, our parents educated? Were they prepared for this? So even before the pandemic even hit, our students should have had access, internet. Okay, internet should have had access and an equitable education. So that actually, the stuff just, hit the fan. And I believe that the pandemic just exposed those gaps. Here's a case in point. Our counterparts, our students' counterparts, brown and black counterparts, they have maybe a 6-month learning loss, where our brown and black students have more of a 12 to 16-month learning loss. And so I'm speaking globally, but I know that our teachers were not prepared. They virtually had to teach themselves. I almost looked to my union colleague there. They almost had to teach themselves while they're trying to teach the students who may not even show up.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let me say to you what I just heard. Mm-hmm. What I just heard was, we weren't prepared. The students weren't prepared. Everybody loses. That's what I just heard in a nutshell. And I want to say that I get it, because obviously nobody was expecting a global pandemic. I get that. But is there not? Well, I think you just answered that there couldn't have been any type of plan for any of this. So now everybody's scrambling, right? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Oh, give them laptops. You know. And
wait a minute, Willie, when it first happened, I can tell you how it happened. Thursday, before we were told that we would not be returning to school after March 17th. So we were told on Thursday, oh, y'all come in Friday and come in Monday. And then everybody will be leaving the building on the 17th of March. Nobody told us how serious this issue was for school. When we walked out of that building on Monday, we were like, oh, we'll be back 2 weeks tops. Mm-hmm. Then in 2 weeks' time, we started hearing all these people dying. but we were not, and nobody told us. And then we had to wait. Our babies had to wait on laptops. The schools did not have the adequate number of laptops. In my building, I had 9 laptops assigned to me for 32 students.
Wow.
So therefore, I had children. We had to, and for a month, the schools had to, our staff, essential staff, which was the security, the administration, they had to gather the laptops, had to say how many we had to say how many students we had. CPS put in orders for new laptops. Then remember, there was a shortage of laptops because the whole world was trying to get technology for their students. So there was a backlog. So from March till April, we had some students at home that had absolutely nothing to be able to get online and work. So they were at a loss from the beginning, especially our black and brown students, because we never have everything that we need for our babies when they come into the school because of school budgets, the way the money is allocated to the schools. So therefore, we're put behind, we're already working at a disadvantage.
Okay. Dr. Natalie Johnson says Catholic schools in Chicago were told the same day that we wouldn't be returning to the building. She says we literally had 4 hours to get 14 days of work together. Oh boy. Nephiteria, you are a director. You're a director. So what becomes, let's go back. Let's stay back there during the global pandemic announcement. So now when this happens, as a director, what is your responsibility?
So when this happened, like they're saying, we got literally, it was like we were working the week of everybody closed down. It was like Monday through Wednesday. We got a notice Thursday that Friday we were done. So I had to literally contact over 90 something parents. We had to contact families to say we're done. And we didn't know when we will return. Returning in June made it that we went to we was going to be hybrid, which means that they were going to do half times they were going to go to school and the other half they were going to be there. So you have to have a school age teacher in there to help them get online, to help them get through not having my school age teacher, which she's amazing, but not having the training. Is literally like school is closed. So literally we're going remote and this is what you have to do. So it was thrown our way to help the parents because now you got it that you might have younger siblings at a daycare center. So then they want to be with their siblings and have the school agers there. So you're opening up a school age room, no material, no information. And you're literally putting your teacher in there saying, I need you to help these kids to get online, to get through remote learning, something that you don't have access to. So it's having my school age teacher basically having to navigate different schedules because they're at different schools. You have them getting online, and then when they're online, the teachers are not online at the time that they're supposed to be online. So my school age teacher, which is one person, is communicating through email to try to talk to that teacher while she has 5 other kids trying to get them all online. So it really hit us hard, but it was like you couldn't get the frustration of being frustrated with parents nor the teachers. More so the teachers, because they did not have the opportunity. We literally had a day to say we were closing. And then literally the week of, I literally found out when I came back in May before my staff. I literally found out on a Wednesday, hey, you're starting back work Friday. So to call and contact all parents to get them on board, to have everybody come back, and then to be prepared to get schedules, to communicate with the different schools so that you guys can try to be on the same page to make sure all the kids are online on time and learning and making, the teachers the school age teacher, making sure that they're actually doing the work with being remote, and then having to change in a couple of weeks to go to hybrid, to have to sometime go back to being remote. So it was the back and forth of it.
Deacon Rob, which is Nephiteria's husband, says,
"Hey, honey."
hunting down Chromebooks and iPads for almost 400 plus kids in my building and cleaning them and getting them ready to go out was a massive problem.
Yes.
And I see everybody's nodding in agreement. Obviously, that is the case. Tina Pittman, and I want to go to Gordon here. Tina Pittman mentioned a little while ago, she mentioned funding. Funding, money for the school systems. Gordon, this today, it was official, the COVID-19 stimulus package, whatever you want to call it, $1.9 trillion, right? And I forgot exactly how much is supposedly going to Chicago school systems. Because of what we're talking about tonight, how do you think, Gordon, that the money that's being allocated to Illinois, to Chicago school system, how do you think some of that money should be used?
Honestly, actually getting more help. As stated before we got online, there are a lot of teachers who are opting to stay at home. Some of them have like older parents, or they have some underlying issues which will not allow them to go into the actual school building. Therefore, someone has to be there to teach that class. I say it should be allocated towards that. Also, ventilation. A lot of Chicago public school buildings are extremely old. When I say old,
absolutely,
some of the windows do not let up to increase some of their ventilation. Some schools don't have adequate air conditioning units and things like that. And I think that will help. Now, what we got is air purifiers. And now the sister that works for CPS, she knows pretty much how those air purifiers work. Depending on the size of your classroom, the air purifiers are the size of a shoebox.
Yep.
Wow.
Like you buy boots or something, it's the size of a Timberland shoebox. And that's supposed to purify the air in the entire classroom.
Wow.
But that's not adequate.
No.
The
actually, two instead of one.
Yeah, you actually need two for a classroom. And there's only one in each classroom pretty much at my school. But the good thing is a lot of students opted not to come back. So where you could have 15 to 20 students in a classroom, you may have like 5 to 7 students in some grades. So the ventilation system more than likely wouldn't be an issue with there being too few students, with social distancing and masks and spit guards around the desk. So some of that funding can go toward that. As far as teacher pay, each school have their own budgets. That budget is established at each fiscal year starting in July. So those budgets for each school is already laid out. So that's something that they don't pretty much have to worry about. The extra money that we get federally, I think should be invested in adequate people to come in and actually assist with the students. Because a lot of teachers aren't coming back. They're doing virtual learning pretty much at home. And if they don't have an accommodation, a lot of them are taking unpaid leaves, meaning they're pretty much quitting, but their jobs are being held until they come back.
Now, that you mentioned that we talked a bit before we went live tonight about the number of teachers. And I'm sure it's probably more than just teachers. There may be principals or other councils, directors, who knows, that said, at some point during the past year, I can't do it. I quit. And they did. And I think it was Tina that was kind of talking to us a bit about that before we went live, about you all are expecting a shortage?
Yes, because I mean the stress level that has been placed on teachers, administrators, we can't forget about them as well, because they're doing their job, but the things that are being asked of the administrators to pass down to the teachers, some of it is ludicrous. It really is. How you're trying to hold people accountable. And like we said, we're focusing on the academic. In my classroom alone, when we first got back to school, I think in 3 weeks, I had 3 or 4 of my students to actually lose family members. That's a massive amount of people.
Yeah.
So we're asking these babies to do all of this academic stuff and forget about the fact that they have to deal with family. They're dealing with their own issues. When you lose a loved one, we don't know how that relationship is. And then students are looking at their parents. And most of my students, the 8th graders, they're taking care of the siblings because the parents are in a state of shock. The parents are going through because we didn't know that we were going to lose daddy, uncle, grandma due to this. So now the child has become the second parent.
Wow.
And we are putting all of this pressure on these babies to produce all of this work, but we're not dealing with, and even as the counselor, we're not dealing with the mental state of the children, because we have been mandated and told academics. But if I'm not getting to the whole child, the academics is not going to work. If I don't deal with their social emotional problems, I cannot get my child to remember 5 times 3.
Right.
And that is a fact. And that's what we're going through. And even with the parents, a lot of our children are more advanced than their parents are, especially when it comes with
technology.
So I've heard grandmamas, and we have in our community, we have a lot of elders that are raising the babies. They really are not technology savvy. And I literally heard a grandma say, "Grandma, eyes are bad. Baby, I can't help you." So she couldn't even help the baby get on to where the baby needed to go because she can't see. But we want to hold these, we want to be held. The CPS wants to hold us, and now we just learned we have to take a state test. The schools, we have to get every child in the school to come and take a state test. And that's due to funding, because, we have to test in order for funding to come about. Education is being turned completely around. We are one of the people, we are one of the things, we get paid for the jobs that we do. Yes, we do. But we don't bring any money into the city. We take money from the city.
Wow.
Interesting.
Because it's education. That we're
when you said that the child is more advanced than the parent, Dr. Chaun agreed by shaking his head and said technology. So then how does this whole thing, how is this working for the children if, let's just say, and I want to hear from all of you guys on this, let's just say the parent is not in the picture due to death or whatever the case, and the student is being raised by the grandparent who has no real knowledge of how to navigate through the World Wide Web. So then, Dr. Chaun, I don't know, how do you all deal with that? Because the legal guardian, who could very well be close to senior citizen age, they don't know the ins and outs of how to navigate this stuff. So how do you deal with that?
So you know what? what we have to do is set expectations for the family. There are expectations for the students, but this is a learning curve for us all. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
And just like we afore mentioned, grandparents, it's nothing new. Grandparents are raising the children, but now the grandparents have to go back to school too.
Yes.
You know, they have to go back to school too, and so we have to be able to reach out as a school. Administration reach out to the school, make sure that home school connection is close and there are no gaps. We invite the parents or the grandparents or the guardians to help build a schedule around that for that student around that time, around the traditional school time, because we're familiar with the hybrid model also, or where students are at home and some are in the classroom. And while some students are in the classroom, they may take a break. But what does that do for the students online? And then what are the students doing online during that break? So now the guardian has to make sure that that student is doing something constructive rather than looking at something, playing games or being on something they should not be into. We encourage the parents to get to know the online platforms, the learning management platforms, and it's a learning curve. You know, some of us are using Google Classroom, some are using Canvas, some are using Schoology, and you have to press all kinds of buttons to get to an assignment and to turn it in. So, yes, it's a lot of work on everybody's part, but, we just have to continue to teach our parents, our grandparents, as to what the expectations are. And it's difficult. It's just difficult, not unaccomplishable, but it's difficult. It's difficult.
I want to, I put this comment on the screen on purposely because I'm about to say something funny. My pastors are on and they agree with Dr. Chaun and say that's a good explanation of what happens daily. Now, the reason I'm laughing is because these two, my pastors, Doctors Kurt and Linda Stennis, they are responsible for Luke, their grandson, and his e-learning because Luke's mom, I told you guys before we came on the air, she's a teacher at the Gardner School. So while she's at work teaching, he's at home with them and they help him, with his e-learning. And Dr. Linda sent a text to me last week, I believe it was, and they were having so much fun. I laughed. I literally laughed out loud when I saw the text because I said she having more fun than Luke is, and is he the one in class? Mm-hmm. And so the reason I brought that up is because there are many of the grandparents, right, who are ready. Let's go. They are hands-on. They know how to do this stuff. And they help and they do all that they can do. So you said, Dr. Chaun, and I wrote this down, and Nephiteria, I saw you agree with that. You said that the grandparents have to go back to school too, with this whole e-learning and stuff. So Nephiteria, do you, or did you have to create this criteria, so to speak, for students and their parents or guardians?
We really didn't have to create it because it was the access between the school communicating that with the parents, and so my center, we're not a direct base where we teach them. We're just a center that helps them get through it. So it's literally like I was saying. So I don't have where the grandparents are at my school or anything like that. It's literally my school age teacher. So she is the one making sure they're online. She is the one making sure. So because she is younger and she's very well able and she's equipped to do this, she is the one that's sitting with them and making sure that they're online and making sure that they are getting the knowledge that they need to get to be on, and making sure that those schedules are printed and making sure that they're in the areas that they need to be in. So I don't have the issue with dealing with the grandparents of that aspect. It's more so they're at my school for that time and in that specific classroom so that they can get through their e-learning process.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's switch gears for a moment. If you all do not know Gordon Newman, let me be the first to tell you that he is a man who is not afraid to say what's on his mind. That is one of the things that I love about him. I've always loved that about him. He will let you know what he is thinking. And the reason I said that, I prefaced that with this, and I want to put this out there. I think it was yesterday. I was on Instagram, and we're talking e-learning right now. And celebrity, so to speak, walked into his son's room, who was supposed to have been paying attention to his class teacher or whatever, right? But the boy was asleep under his cover, sleep. His father, I tell you who it is later. Everybody know who it is, but I ain't gonna say it. I ain't gonna say it online. His father woke him up. The boy jumped up, startled, because he know he's supposed to be in school, and father kind of made a joke out of it and said, I can't even be mad at him because I would have been doing the same thing. That disturbed me. That bothered me. I got how he was trying to make light of it, make a joke out of it, Gordon, but this is just me. I don't think that's a laughing matter.
It's not.
So, I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about that? You got students sleep. You're the counselor, because you have to hear from him at some point. You have the student sleep, and his celebrity father makes a joke out of it and said, oh, well, I probably would be doing the same thing. And this is a Black man.
That's the sentiment of a lot of our parents that we encounter with the students that we have. And I'm going to tell you why they do it. The Illinois Department of Education said that, guess what? We're going to forget next year it never happened. We're going to pass everybody.
Wow.
You don't have to sit. You don't have to learn. You don't have to do any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they gave them a free year.
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did.
That same energy and attitude now resides in the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't feel the need to actually log on and actually do work. And you have that same sentiment that parent had among the parents that parent our students. I've had kids wake up in sleep clothes. They log on eating breakfast cereal, bacon and eggs. I hear music playing. The list goes on. I hear cursing. A couple of people broke out doing e-learning where the kid had to log off. I've had kids log on in Popeyes ordering 3-piece and a biscuit. I've had kids log on walking through the mall.
Mm-hmm.
I've had kids log on while riding on a city bus, logging on their phones. I've had kids log on eating, watching television. They're not looking at the screen, they're looking at another screen above it or below it. So there isn't an urgency to actually learn anymore. Just because we had last year that regardless of the work you didn't do, we're going to ask you anyway.
Sure did.
There's been no emphasis whatsoever with them this year making a strong push to tell students, you have to do this or you're going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Just 2 weeks ago, our principal's boss, which is known as a network chief, told the schools in the network that they're giving out too many F's and too many D's, even though since September, some kids only logged on 3 times. 3 times. So naturally they get an F grade, right? Or a 0. So guess what? 9 times out of 10 this year, you're going to have to pass those students. So guess what happens when they get to high school?
Not ready.
It's not going to be good.
Ready.
The graduation rate that they bragged about last year being 80% in CPS is going to tank. The on-track rate for freshman students is going to tank.
Yep.
All of that stuff in progress that we've made prior to the pandemic is pretty much going to flatten or actually get worse. And because they told them, we're going to pass you. You don't have to do anything. And that was a seed. And this year it's manifesting because they don't want to do work. Now, as a counselor, counselors do more than counsel. We actually have a class. I don't have an office. I have a classroom that seats like 25 to 30 students. And I have 6 or 7 advisories every week. I actually go in and I teach students about academics, personal social issues.
Hold on for 1 second, Gordon. If you all have another device, I'm getting feedback from another device that may be up. Turn the volume down on that. Go ahead, Gordon.
Okay. I'm not on anything. But yeah, so that's what I do. In my classes, like we see each other right now, there are some kids that don't cut their cameras on. So you're pretty much instructing 15 to 20 emojis of screensavers on the computer because kids don't actually open their computers.
Is this not a requirement? It's not. It's not a requirement for the student to have their camera on.
It's a requirement. It's supposed to be, but
it's supposed to be.
Yeah. We can't really do it because that's like us harassing the students. They could say that we're harassing them. So it's almost a catch-22. It's like the teachers' hands have been tied. The educators' hands have been tied by all of the different things because parents call in and say, well, the teacher is saying this to my child. The teacher is doing this. The teacher is doing this. But what about what your child is doing or not doing?
Dr. Chaun.
Yeah, thank you. You know, the idea comes from those who do not understand how our community really works. And so what they do is they come into our communities, they study what they think they know, and they go out and make millions of dollars and require us to read their books, such as Teaching with Poverty in Mind. With that in mind, the idea is I have my camera off, or we should have our students' cameras off because we don't know what type of poverty is in the background, and we don't want to expose that poverty to anyone. When in essence, all we really have to do is just turn the camera towards a wall, right? Turn the camera towards a wall, and let's engage in class. I've had to say many times, show your face, show your camera, show your video. And they know, especially during a math test, how do I not know that you're on a calculator or, you're doing this, but that's the idea behind it. It makes very little sense. But that's the idea, the foundational idea behind that.
Nephiteria.
Wow. I agree with what everybody's saying. I just feel like I'm baffled by hearing everything and it's really sad. I don't think that everybody is, I don't think that the seriousness of it, and if you're not making it a priority in your own household, and if you're saying that it doesn't matter, how can you expect for your child? How can you expect them to be of excellence? And you're saying it's, well, okay, you get on. If you don't get on, you don't get on. I feel that the camera, when they are at our schools, the camera has to be on. If the teacher is talking, I don't care if you have a substitute, you will listen to that teacher. The same respect that you will give if you're in class, you're going to get it while you're online in class. I have both aspects of it because my husband is administration. He does work for, he does work for CPS. So I do hear the challenge that he has, and we do balance things off of each other. But it's the respect level from the parents' point of view as well. If you're not on your child, or if you're not emphasizing education as what it's supposed to be, the kids won't accept it. So then you do come and you're sending them to school, or you're trying to get the higher education. But when they're going off to school, they're not having. When the school opens back up, I'm afraid, because the respect that they have for the teachers, it's lost and it's gone. So I really feel for educators. That's why I try my best and do my part. If a teacher, like I said, if they're asking the question, answer that teacher. If you have a break in between, they usually give like an activity on the computer where they can do like a educational activity. You need to be on the educational activity for that 5-minute break or that 10-minute break. You're not, when you come to school, you need to have on school clothes. You can't come in the building with pajamas on, or you can't come, not groomed, because that's not how you will go to school. So I think that around those expectations, I really believe that if parents don't get a grip on it, it's really going to affect our next generation.
I agree with that. Carnesia West, I hope I said your first name right. He or she said some schools have it as a requirement to have your camera on during class. If your camera isn't on, some teachers mark the child absent, and that's when the parent wants to have something to say. Now, this is something that I could get with. I could get with this, because come on, Nephiteria brought up the respect factor. Come on now, if you have to learn this way, be respectful. And that child is living in somebody's house under somebody's roof, and that person should make absolutely sure that the person that's not paying rent pay attention. All right. My apostle said the challenges we face in this pandemic, absolutely, will affect society for years to come. That is absolutely right. Tasha Shields made a comment earlier about her son being racially bullied while e-learning from another student. She says she literally called the school to speak to the colonel and got no response until I went to the school's social media page, tagged them regarding racist statements and emails that were sent to my son during class. It was then I got a call from the principal after going down the chain of command and threatening to pull the news in. I want to stick a pin in that. We'll come back to that. Nancy Murphy says we had to work with the family and school and teacher to facilitate our baby's learning schedule as well. Monica says, I won't say your real name, girl. If they were uniformed, that school requires them to be in uniform. Absolutely. And cameras turned on. Wait a minute. So is this right? If the school has a uniform in person, they have to wear that uniform during e-learning. Yes. I did not know that. That is interesting. Very, very interesting. Dr. Natalie says, my students are required to have their cameras on, and if they don't, I first alert the parent. Then if nothing happens, I remove them from my class. Interesting. The comment, Dr. Chaun, the comment that said, if the children's camera is not on, some teachers mark them absent. And then the parent starts to huffing and puffing because the child was marked absent. But come on, Principal Johnson, technically, isn't that right?
If the student, give it to me again, if the student refuses
to turn the camera on. The parent does not ensure that the camera is on. The teacher marks the student absent. The parent goes off on the teacher.
So I have a couple of thoughts on that. I know that there are some students who have a real anxiety of being on the camera. And then there are some students who are just playing their parents. They're just I'm very familiar with, hey, student A, come on, unmute your device, and then they'll just sit there.
Wow.
As if they can't hear me. But then there are some real technical issues with these laptops, with these Chromebooks. There's some. So the best way is to just, as one of the comments say, gotta contact that parent. I remember contacting one student who gave me all of those things. Didn't share the video, or share the video and didn't answer. I gave him an assignment he said he couldn't see. And so I called the parent and I said, Mom, I know it may not be your child, but sometimes we have some students who just decide they want to play the parents, and I know, and they won't let the child show their video, but maybe what you could do, maybe some sort of mistake, but I need you to help them press that button that says, unmute. Press that button that says share video. Maybe you can help them with that. And can you see, he says that the letters are real small. What's going on? Maybe you can take them to the a Pearl Vision or an eyeglass place or something. Her response was, what? Boy, put your glasses on.
That is funny.
These children are extremely smart and cunning.
Oh yeah.
And yes, for us, if they're not showing their face, we have to contact the parent. But after a while, you know what? You're not doing anything in my class. You're not turning in my class. You're wasting time. You're wasting instructional minutes that I can be given to students that really are engaged and care. So that's my answer. All of those things considered, we just have to find what's the best method of communication, because sometimes it really is a lag, or it's little to no a good signal of it, and it's a lot of things. So really, it's just a lot of communication with parents.
I wanna put this one up, and I want to give this one to Gordon. Chaun Pritchett says there's going to be so much reprogramming when we return. Such a bad term to use, but discipline might look different than before. What is your method for that?
Method for discipline is pretty much the same. Infractions are pretty much noted by the teachers or who's ever the primary person responsible for the kid when they come in. And usually a verbal thing that goes on, a redirection. After that, there's a record. And from that point on, they actually is either referred to a dean, the counselor, or an administrator. So it's pretty much the same thing,
Natalie Johnson says there are parents who don't take e-learning seriously and have pulled kids out of school for vacation, even during a pandemic. That I don't know. I just don't know. I have to go back to what doctors Curtin Lindestein said, and that's the truth. This thing has changed society forever. Yep. I mean, everything's changed. Two more things, and we're going to get out of here because this has been mind-blowing for me. I don't know how you guys do it. Man, you all really, really deserve more credit than you get, because this is just listening to y'all. I'm amazed at the things that I'm hearing. Let's talk stress. We're talking joys and complexities. We haven't heard many joys tonight, but I'm sure there's some somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some somewhere in there.
Yes.
But let's talk stress. Before, ladies and gentlemen, before we came live, we chatted amongst ourselves for a minute, and Tina Pittman said some things that just like blew me away about the stresses that you guys have faced over the past year. So much so, I think you said that there was a principal that had a stroke, I believe it was.
There was actually 2 principals that had strokes when we came back into the school year this year, because of the stress from everything that is going on and the directives that they were given and everything. So work related. Yeah. One of the principals literally had a mild stroke at the school during a meeting. So this
During a meeting.
Yes, during a meeting.
Wow.
So the stress level of being an educator or being anybody that's really working, and like Nephiteria said, nobody was prepared. We were literally learning with our students. And then over the summer, they gave these mass amounts of training and telling people to watch YouTube. Well, the same thing that we do with our students, where we do different methods to get students to learn, you have to think about it. Teachers learn differently as well. Nobody learns the same. But you want to tell me to sit up here, watch a 45-minute video, and I'm supposed to be an expert. Come on now. And so where's my hands-on? I might need somebody to walk me through it as I'm learning this. Nobody thought about that. But we're supposed to just watch a video, and we're supposed to be able to do everything that you have been doing for years after seeing it one time. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Not fair to us. It's not fair to our students. It's not fair to our parents. It's not fair to anybody that has had to go through this situation. So, and that's the whole thing. And that's what we've been trying to get people to see. And when we were going back and forth, the union, that was what we were talking about. Help us be more adequate, be more effective with the e-learning. And first of all, internet access. We still have children who parents are having problems. It's either pay the light bill or pay the internet bill.
Wow.
So there are still some things that are happening where our children are not, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. And we do, because the internet is something that every household needs now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Principal Johnson, Chief, Doctor, and Apostle. In your position, your schooling, how often, and I'm real careful with this because of separation of church and state. How often does the apostle show up in the principal's office?
All the time.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
I knew that.
But the Holy Spirit is not unseemly. But I'm going to tell you, I've had students. Now I've worked in public schools. I worked in public charters. I've worked in parochial. And the Holy Spirit uses me just like He uses me in any setting. I've had young people get healed, delivered, Legs were broke. You could hear the bones cracking and coming back together. In the name of Jesus. But yeah. But if you allow me this piece,
Yes, please.
I think this is an underlying theme or ongoing theme. Proper preparation prevents worry, right? Proper preparation prevents worry. So if we have our students or our teachers going back into the classroom, how safe are we willing to make sure that no one has stress, but the stress levels are ameliorated, augmented, or obliterated, Proper preparation prevents worry. Our teachers need what they need, period. They need the professional development on every system. Our parents need to be prepared as to what this is going to look like. But for any situation, proper preparation prevents worrying and anxiety and panicking. I can pass it to my counseling brother here that, if we prepare adequately, then perhaps those stress levels would, come down.
Gordon?
Stress is rooted in fear.
Yeah.
And as he stated, not feeling adequate enough to actually get the job done, fear of not meeting deadlines, fear of not reaching a student that you should reach. All of that causes stress. So as he stated, self-care is very important. Not only preparation, self-care. There has to be something outside of the job that calms you down, that you look forward to, that you enjoy, to pretty much offset the job that you do at a school. Because in the back of my mind is, if I drop dead today, there will be a posting.
Yes. Yes.
2 hours.
Yes. Yes.
I'm gonna be here a long time, and so I don't allow things to stress me out that much. But I will have to say, as a Christian, e-learning has increased my prayer life.
Yes,
My
Lord.
meditation life. I've located or created quiet spaces for myself, and I don't let anything or anyone stress me out. And as you alluded to earlier, I say what's on my mind, and I'm very direct. That's how I keep from being stressed out, because I don't ever want to have to wonder when somebody walk away or when I cut the cameras off, something that I should have said that could have helped somebody that I didn't get an opportunity to say. So I have to say it, know. But self-care is very, very, very important. After this, a lot of teachers may have some medical issues.
Yep.
To stress, a lot of those things. And it's something that you don't even actually feel. That's why they say stress is a silent killer. There's some things stress sets up in your body that causes illness, and it's not good. So it's very, very, very important that teachers balance, not only teachers, administrators, even if you're working with kids, because you're working with 30 bodies, which is 30 volumes of energy coming at you at one time. So that's my say.
Nephiteria, were there any joys in the educational system? Was there anything joyful? Anything joyful to mention in the past year?
I believe that in order for you to be in this field, you got to find some joy in it. Waking up every day during a pandemic, and like I said, me being myself and my staff and the kids and the families being there since we reopened in June of last year. We were in the middle of a pandemic. The joys was, seeing everybody. That was my joy. That none of my parents or none of my kids or my staff passed away from this. The joy of it was all of us being together and around each other again. When you have a passion for education and you have a passion for children, your joy don't die down because of a pandemic. It's something that's innate in you. It's the love for it. You have to have a love. Not trying to be funny or anything like that, but we don't get paid enough not to do this because we love it.
That's true.
So it has to be a passion. It's not a job that you can just say, well, I'm going to do this job because I need some money. If you don't have the passion for it, then it's not what you're supposed to do. So my joy came from being able and having my families come back to the center and having my staff come back to the center and seeing my children, even though we were masked and we're still in mask daily. It was a thankfulness that I had to God that you let everybody return back to me as they left. So that was my joy in seeing that, having hope. You have to have hope daily. It is very, very I want to reiterate about the stress. My stress came from the unknown, coming back and not knowing what the pandemic was and how, because it affected me personally. It affected my family. I had family members to die from COVID. So to return, I literally was honest with my boss. I called her when she called me. I said, I don't know if I'm coming back. And I talked with my husband and he said, well, babe, you got to start somewhere. Start with a smaller group. And so you have to go in. And that changed my perspective to talk to my staff, because I knew if I wouldn't have came back, a lot of them wouldn't have came back. The thing that stressed me the most was because we are early childhood education, expressions matter in my infancy classroom. So us having to wear a mask, how do I show expression? I can't just say to my kids, if they're having a bad day or if they're crying, I can't say, go over there. I can't do 6 feet with my children. We have to be affectionate. So that getting over that part, it was really, not to go back and be spiritual, but God got me through. God got all of us through. I go through my building and I pray every day. I pray each day because we could not have gotten through this without God. So I feel like God brought the joy back to because I felt like now you feel it's not just teaching and it's not just being in a building, it's your purpose. So when you can go into a building and pray and you can see that, that this child is getting joy, or this teacher, this is what they need to be in the space, you find joy in any situation that you can possibly find it in. And when you got God, you got joy. So you can't have one without the other. I can't fulfill my purpose, and I'm not trying to preach, but I can't fulfill my purpose if I'm not full of joy. So I couldn't go to work every day with my head boggled down because I have a staff of 20 under me. I have a family under me. You have families under me. I have children under me. So even in those moments, I had to create joy by creating songs, by creating activities to help the kids and help the teachers get through one of the worst times of our lives.
What did you learn? And this is my last question. Thank you, everybody that's been attentive for this past almost 90 minutes. This has been amazing. And I want to go in this order: Nephiteria, and then Gordon, and then Tina, and then Dr. Chaun. What have you learned about your professional self in the past year?
What I learned was that I can get through it. I learned that the hardest thing that you think that would never happen. We never thought a pandemic will come. We weren't prepared for any of this. But the fact that getting through it and not looking for the future or by taking it second by second, minute by minute, day by day, and to know that you can only control what you can control. You cannot control the uncontrollable. So you're only entitled to do what you can do. And to relieve the stress from yourself, you have to say, if this teacher leaves, or if this family leaves, or if COVID was to hit, you've done everything that you possibly can do in your power, that as an educator and as a director or as a teacher, or that you can possibly do. And when it's out of your control, it literally is out of your control. Yeah. So what I've learned was, I can't stress over what I cannot control. So my thing is to God, you knew this was going to happen. You knew this pandemic was going to happen. You knew everything that was going to happen. So when we pray and we say, God, give us this day, we are actually saying, you know the day. So you know what's going to happen. So control my day, and I'm going to follow you as I go through the day.
I like that. Control my day and I'll follow you. Come on, Gordon.
Stay balanced. Do your job and go home. Just that simple.
Yep.
I like that.
That's true. That's true.
I told y'all that's just who he is. Do your job and go on.
I love it. Don't take the job with you.
That's it.
They basically said, Nephiteria and Gordon have basically said what needed to be said. I think my joy for this year was making sure that my students were okay.
Yeah.
Being able to hear their voices meant everything to me. Making sure that they understood that they had somebody that they could talk to regardless of the time. Because I'm that teacher where I've set up Google Hangout. So they text me 12 o'clock at night if they need to and say, Miss Pittman, I need this or I need that. And I respond. I'll be like, okay, thank you for telling me and things like that. But learning to be who I am and not afraid to, like Gordon, say what needs to be said. Because at the end of the day, the truth is going to make you free. But if I never tell you the truth, you'll always be walking around in denial. And sometimes that truth doesn't feel good when it's told. And it also makes you have to go back and reflect. You can only be in denial so long after somebody's told you the truth. Because sooner or later, you're going to have to deal with the fact that might be true about me. So that right there, I have learned this year. When you ask me a question, make sure you're ready for the truth.
That's right.
Because I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Because with this right here, there's no time to sugarcoat. Because tomorrow is not promised to anybody.
Absolutely.
If you ask me the question, I'm going to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Dr. Chaun.
So I've been praying for a long time, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who've been praying for a long time that the achievement gap, the opportunity divide, the digital divide, lessons, or gets filled up. I've been praying for many years because our children has not had equitable access. So however God does it, it's how he does it, and just hearing that there were 9 laptops for 32 children. Now we're pushing, 1-to-1s, for our children. That helps closes that achievement gap. If our children, I believe, Evangelist Goldberg said, if you want to be somebody and you want to go somewhere, you got to wake up and get online. You got to pay attention. You got to pay attention. So that's one thing I've been praying for, and I've simply learned that God will do things his way. He will make a promise to you, but he never tells you all of the tears, all of the hurt, and some of the anguish that you have to go through. He just shows you the end result. So throughout this time, I've understood that fear has torment, right? Fear has torment, but the Lord is our light. He's our salvation. Whom shall we fear? The Lord is the strength of our life, or the stronghold of our life. Whom shall we be afraid? When the wicked, even our enemy, came to eat up our flesh, our testimony is they came. The enemies have to come so they can stumble and fall.
Yeah.
And so with this, the joys, our children have collaboration. They have access. They have creativity. They can analyze now. They can visit folks on the other side of the world. The coding is stronger. The science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. They can work these analytics, numbers, operations, geometry. They have access right at their fingertips to the other side of the world. That's a joy.
Yeah.
It's a joy. However, if we don't use what God has given us, then it's not a gift. All right. It's not a gift, but what it is it's an abuse. or it's a non-use. The third thing I've learned in this pandemic, in this role as an assistant principal, is I can lead from wherever I am.
Oh, that's good.
Organization. John Maxwell refers to it as a 360-degree leader. I know how to lead those who are under me. I know how to lead those who are my equals. And then I know how to lead the supervisor. Being a 360 degree leader, all right, and still being able to be very effective and fulfilling the purpose that God has given in my life for others.
We talked a lot about the complexities that these 4 individuals and you too that are watching have had to deal with if you're in education over the past year. Whether you're in education or not, whatever field you're in, there have been many, many, many difficulties that you and I have had to deal with, face head on, and overcome. But in these past 10 minutes, the joys that these people talked about outweighs everything else that has happened within the past year in this pandemic. We never saw it coming. We heard that tonight. We weren't prepared. We heard that tonight. We were stressed. We didn't have equipment. We didn't have money. It was stressful. We heard all of those things tonight. But the one thing that we have so much gratefulness for is that in the midst of all of that happening, we made it.
Yes.
That is a joy that we should carry for the rest of our lives. We lived through a pandemic. It may not sound like much to you, but if you just sit down a moment and think about it, over 5 million people dead in 12 months globally from one thing. And here we are talking about the joys of what we do. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I wish you could just get some greater appreciation for these people who walk our children through life day by day. Whether it be virtual, whether it be in person, it's the principal, it's the counselor, it's the teacher, it's the director that are teaching and training and grooming your children to live a prosperous life, to live a happy life, to live a grateful life. Yeah, there'll be many complexities, whatever your occupation is. But never let those complexities outweigh the joy. Find the joy somewhere. Find it somewhere. I would like to thank each and every one of you all for tuning in tonight. Whether you're tuning in by Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, or Twitter, thank you for coming to the front line tonight. These 4 individuals have been on the front line for the past 12 months, some without a break. Even though they were not physically in the school system, in the school building, they were still teaching. They were still counseling. They were still principaling, and they were still directing, just to make sure that your children have what they need to face life. Please help me thank Dr. Chaun Johnson, Tina Pittman, Gordon Newman, Nephiteria Robinson. Thank you all so much for coming to the front line. I appreciate it. I love you guys. Y'all know that. And you all have a good night. Everybody watching, have a good night. Until next time, we'll see you all on the front line. Take care.
Bye.